We spend billions making our homes our castles. We lock the doors, we choose the paint colors, we control the thermostat. But there is one variable you did not pick on Zillow, one thing you cannot control. The person who lives 18 inches away from your bedroom wall. We think of Neighbours as a sitcom trope, the grumpy guy, the nosy woman, but neuroscience and social psychology tell us a different story. Having a bad neighbor isn't just annoying, it is a chronic, low-grade threat response. And having a good neighbor, it might be the single most underrated antidepressant you own. Today, we are hacking the psychology of the fence line. Let's start with the villain, the bad neighbor. Psychologists call your home the extended self. It's not just shelter, it is your identity projected onto space. When a neighbor plays bass at 2 a.m., they aren't just breaking noise ordinances. Psychologically, they are breaching your territorial boundary. Your amygdala, the brain's smoke detector, cannot tell the difference between a tiger in the bushes and a leaf blower at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. It just knows intruder, threat. But here is the cruel twist. You cannot fight or flee from a neighbor. You have to see them tomorrow. This creates ambient stress. Unlike a stressful meeting that ends, a bad neighbor is a passive stressor that never goes away. It lives in your peripheral vision. Studies show that people who feel they have untrustworthy neighbors have higher baseline cortisol levels. You are essentially living in a state of low-grade hypervigilance. You start checking the hallway before you leave. You hide when you hear their door open. That is not being shy. That is learned helplessness in action.
The psychology gets darker when we look at reciprocity. If your neighbor lets their dog bark, you stop picking up your mail. They see your weeds, so they let their fence rot. Within 6 months, no one knows who started it, but the block looks like a ghost town. This is the broken windows theory applied to relationships. Incivility breeds incivility. You become a worse neighbor because they are a bad neighbor. You harden. And that hardening, it bleeds into your marriage, your patience with your kids, your driving. We mirror the emotional temperature of our immediate environment. If their energy is hostile, your nervous system matches it. You don't just have a bad neighbor, you become a slightly worse version of yourself. But let's flip the script. What happens when you win the lottery? A good neighbor provides something therapy struggles to give: passive social safety. You don't need to be best friends. You don't need to barbecue together every Sunday. You just need the signal. Psychologists call this mere exposure mixed with incidental connection. When you see the same friendly face while getting the paper, your brain releases oxytocin. Not a lot, just a drip. That drip tells your prefrontal cortex, you are in a coalition. You are safe. Put the sword down. A study from the University of Michigan found that simply feeling connected to your neighbor predicted lower rates of heart attack and stroke, independent of diet, exercise, or smoking. Why? Because knowing that someone would notice if you fell in the shower reduces the vigilance tax you pay every day. So, how do we fix this? You can't force someone to go to therapy. Sociologist Mark Granovetter has a concept called the strength of weak ties. With neighbors, we don't need strong ties, best friends. We need positive weak ties. Here is the psychological hack, the 30-second rule. If you have a bad neighbor, do not ignore them. Ignoring creates a negative tie, a vacuum that fills with assumptions. You think they hate you. They think you are a snob. The only cure is a low-stakes 30-second interaction. Can you grab my mail? Nice hose. Sorry about the noise Saturday. It feels fake? Do it anyway. Why? Because cognitive dissonance works both ways. If you ask a bad neighbor for a tiny favor, their brain thinks, I helped them. I must not hate them. You literally rewire the relationship through action. And if you have a good neighbor, don't take them for granted. A simple wave is not a cliche. It is a social safety signal. It tells your lizard brain the tribe is intact.
We cannot choose our family. We can choose our friends, But neighbors exist in the uncanny valley between the two. They are the involuntary witnesses to our lives, and whether they are good or bad, they are not just sharing a wall, they are sharing your nervous system. A bad neighbor raises your blood pressure in the background. A good neighbor lowers your defenses in the background. One is a debt, the other is a gift. So go look out the window, just for 10 seconds. Does the person next door make you feel safe or scanned? Because psychology says your mental health doesn't stop at your property line. Like and subscribe for more psychology of everyday life. And seriously, if your neighbor is playing loud music right now, maybe just bring them a cookie. It's harder to hate someone you've broken bread with.